mixing console behind me is a beautiful piece of technology, but I'm not going to be talking about technology today. I want to talk about sound ideas and how sound ideas get incorporated into movies, and really more about when sound ideas get incorporated into movies. Typically, at the point in time when a script is finished, and they're never really finished because scripts continue to be fiddled with all the way through post-production, but around the time that the script is nominally finished, there are still only very vague ideas about how a film will look and how it will sound. But between the time when the script is finished and when shooting begins, there's typically an enormous amount of discussion about things like costume design, cinematography, production design, locations. And there's not only discussion about those, there's a lot of experimentation and investigation into each of those areas. And there's not only that, there is discussion, a lot of discussion, about how creative decisions in each of those areas will affect creative decisions and logistics in all of the other visual aspects of the movie. During the same period of time, between when the script is finished and when the shooting starts, there's virtually no talk about sound or sound ideas. The prevailing idea is that film is a visual medium and that sound ideas can mostly wait until post-production. Unfortunately, what that means is that sound's not going to have any opportunity to influence any of the visual aspects of the movie. So whereas the camera department and the costume department, the art direction department, etc., are all kind of collaborating like mad early on and figuring out what each is going to do to adjust to what all the others are doing. That's collaboration. The sound department is kind of left out to dry, not being able to collaborate at all. And that seems crazy to me, but it's been going on like that for about 100 years. But there's one, what I think is a fantastic exception to this general trend, and that's a film that was made in 1968, directed by Sergio Leone, called Once Upon a Time in the West. And especially the first 10 minutes of that film are clearly designed with sound in mind, and sound clearly informs nearly everything about the way those images are shot. So how did that happen? How did this great exception happen in the middle of all this kind of ignoring of sound? Well, it has a lot to do with music. Sergio Leone liked sometimes to have his composer, Ennio Morricone, write and record an entire score for a film before they started shooting the film. And Leone liked that because he wanted to be able to play the music on the set to inspire the actors and get the whole crew in the right kind of mood for each scene. And it really did apparently inform just about everything that happened on the set. And they did exactly that for Once Upon a Time in the West. The problem was that neither Leone nor Morricone were very happy with that first music cue, the one that occupied approximately the first 10 minutes of the film. And they were getting slowly panicked about it because the time was quickly approaching when they were going to have to shoot the movie, and Leone really wanted to have that music to play on the set. So Morricone had an idea that he got from going to a certain kind of concert, and I'll read to you what Morricone had to say about that later. Morricone recalls, "There was something very important that I'd told Sergio. I'd been to a concert in Florence where a man came onto the stage and began, in complete silence, to take a step ladder and make it creak and squeak, which went on like this for several minutes, and the audience had no idea what it was supposed to mean. But in the silence, the squeaking of this stepladder became something else. And the philosophical argument behind the experiment was that a sound, any sound at all from everyday life, isolated from its context and isolated by silence, becomes something different that is not part of its real nature." I think what he meant by this was that it became music, essentially. I recounted this experience to Sergio, who already had these things in his blood, and he made those extraordinary first 10 minutes of Once Upon a Time in the West from that idea. When the film was eventually screened with a finished mix, with pretty much the only sounds in the first 10 minutes being sound effects, Morricone was quoted as saying, "You know, I think this is the best music I've ever composed." I'm not sure if that was true, and he composed a lot of great music after that, but Morricone obviously had a huge influence on that sequence. It's clear that Leone made decisions about what to shoot based on the sound possibilities in those shots. And sound ideas, I think, determined to a great degree what the camera was pointed at in those first 10 minutes. I think it's clear that you would never shoot Woody Strode sitting under that water tower in the way that you did if Leone didn't have in mind the drip, drip, drip sounds. And I think it's clear that he wouldn't have shot the sequence with Jack Elam playing with the fly in his pistol if he wasn't imagining the sound of that fly. So what's the lesson? Is the lesson that if you take sound seriously and allow it to affect visual decisions, every film you do will be a masterpiece? No. But I do think that this 55-year-old film clip pointed toward new possibilities for sound in film that were never fully pursued. I think there's a vast unexplored territory out there in which sound can influence the visuals as much as visuals influence the sound. And I want to challenge each of you to explore that amazing space. Thank you.